So, Joe, we continue on our path in the top 5 of the ACC or Power 4 conferences. Tonight, we're on the ACC and reference our top 5 skill players who are in your top 5.
My top 5, number 1, Antonio Williams, the Clemson wide receiver. Number 2, Jamal Haynes, Georgia Tech running back. Number 3, Jaden Ott, running back from Cal. Number 4, Chris Bell, wide receiver from Louisville. And then I got the right Louisville. And then lastly, Isaac Brown, running back from Louisville.
All right. Your number 5 is absolutely atrocious. Isaac Brown at number 1 out of Louisville for me. Antonio Williams, Clemson wide receiver at number 2. Jamal Haynes, Georgia Tech running back at number 3. Trevor Pena, Syracuse wide receiver. Chris Bell at number 5. Joe, we are way off on our number 1. You have Isaac Brown at 5. I got Isaac Brown at 1. Buddy, this kid's good, man. This kid is he's one. I will give you that. I would concede if you want to go Antonio Williams, we can go there. That's fine. This kid is top 2 in the ACC. I don't give 2 Rudy Poos what you're about to throw at me. He is top 2. Stop capping.
Okay. I'm not hating on Isaac Brown. Like that's not what I'm doing here. I'm not. I'm just a little bit more excited by guys that have been playing for a little bit longer, that have been around for a little bit longer. To Isaac Brown's credit. Okay, well, first of all, this plays into my whole conversation that we had at the beginning. I don't think that there's a clear answer. I think that you could throw these names in a hat and you could shake them up and you could throw them on the table and then put them in whatever order you want. There is nobody that's coming back with crazy production, except Isaac Brown did have awesome production last year, averaging 7.1 yards per carry, over 1,100 yards and 11 touchdowns. He was the reason why Clemson lost to Louisville.
Yes.
He took over that game. I just wonder, like, what is his production going to be like this upcoming season? Does he replicate it? Young running backs sometimes don't always bounce back and have big numbers, but he's got juice. He's got that home run threat ability, and his production it's there. It's evidence. We're not talking about a guy who only had like a couple of good games.
No, name something that he doesn't do extremely well, even in pass pro, with a smaller frame. Joey, he can catch the ball out of the backfield. He runs in between the tackles, even undersized a little, violently, very violently. Joe, listen, you're right. Running backs, when they break out on the scene as freshmen, teams get film on them, and sometimes they can falter in year 2. The problem is last year he split reps and still was 1,000-yard back. He only had 165 carries and got 1,000 yards. That is stupid. That is dumb. Your backup in the beginning of the season was 1,000-yard rusher. And it's not as if Louisville played poo-poo teams. Joe, you know what's interesting? I went back today, okay, for what it's worth, and I'm going to pull it up here. Hold on. Notre Dame versus Louisville. It's not that I thought that he went off. Is that I knew that he was going against really good talent and he was making plays. So when you look at the ACC and you say, Blake, the ACC's down. Well, I look at him going up against a really good defense and Notre Dame and having 13 carries and 72 yards. Didn't do necessarily anything spectacular or massive, but if you remember, in that first half, they could not throw the football to save their life. The pressure was on Shuck the entire time. Isaac Brown comes into that second half. By the way, that was a 7-point win for the Irish that day in a rainy environment, in a very bad environment. When it rained, it was. It was.
There was no.
It was. Want to bet?
I remember that game.
It was overcast for damn sure.
It was overcast, but it wasn't raining.
I think it was raining. It was a little rainy. Regardless of that semantic, it was definitely overcast. He still comes in, not only in the running game, he goes out in motion, goes into the slot and has 4 catches for 23 yards. That's the difference for me. He can do everything that you ask him to. Now, I wanted to say his size worries me, but damn, he runs violent, cuz.
Yeah, he's not like a massive kid or anything, but and he's also younger. Yeah, when you got these younger running backs, and it's like we talked about with Ahmad Hardy, and when we talked about any of these young guys that we bring up, just because they're under 200 pounds doesn't mean that they don't end up adding more weight to their frame. Doesn't mean that they don't end up getting more bulked up. But I can't deny that Isaac Brown doesn't have a serious impact for his team. And I can't deny that Louisville's success is going to be focused around him. It's not going to be focused around Miller Moss. I don't think Miller Moss is really I really like Chris Bell, though, dude. Like I think, which we'll get to in a second.
The focus is not going to be around him.
They throw the ball a lot.
Stopping Isaac Brown.
That's fair.
Continue. Sorry.
No, that was all I had, though. It's just that his early success and then leaning into him has shown for the next 2 years after last year, he will be a catalyst for Louisville still being one of the top ACC teams.
Joe, that Notre Dame game, the Clemson game, it's not as if that he didn't go up against really good athletes. And as a freshman, he was beating them in the open field. He was beating them in space. Are we going to talk about the team that played for a national championship and Notre Dame wasn't physical? He was running in between the tackles. That, for me, is like, look, man, your best two performances, I'm not going based off the stats. I'm going based off what these eyeballs showed me. I thought it was the best when he was absolutely needed. All right. But we do have Antonio Williams. You have Antonio Williams, the Clemson wide receiver, at 1. I have him at 2. Joe, arguably and probably the best wide receiver in the ACC returning to Clemson, as they really did hit on that whole freshman class at wide receiver.
Yeah. Antonio Williams was very underrated last year because we spent so much time last year talking about how going into the season, Clemson didn't really have receivers. And they got a lot of inconsistent production. But towards the end of the season, the last couple of games, Brian Wesco Jr. and Antonio Williams really stepped up to the plate. Antonio Williams being the older of the bunch and the presence that he brings is going to be important for Clemson to contend and to win a national title this upcoming, or not to win a national title, but to contend for one and to win the ACC. 904 yards last year, 11 touchdowns on 75 receptions. Strong route runner, pretty reliable target for Cade Klubnik to turn to. Cade Klubnik's success is going to come off of the fact that Antonio Williams takes another step forward and that Brian Wesco Jr., who was a young dude last year, also takes another leap forward. I actually wouldn't even be shocked if we don't end up at the beginning or at the end of the year talk about Brian Wesco Jr. in the mix here in the top 5 of these lists as well. They have a sneaky good wide receiver room for the Tigers, who we have spent a lot of time hyping up.
Well, look, and you're going against Mansour Delane in week 1. You're going up against DJ Pickett, was the number 1 corner in the country, 5-star coming in. You got to see him week 1. Look, Antonio Williams scares the bejesus out of me. Now, I haven't gone to my audience, a Baton Rouge audience, and said, hey, man, listen, you were 76 in the country last year in passing yards allowed. Well, this kid will bust you up. So the thing for me is the red zone production. Hello. Now, he ended with 11 touchdowns last year. I don't know how I'm supposed to ask him to in an offense that without Phil Maffa, I don't know if they're going to be consistently able to run the football. I'm asking him to do more production than double-digit touchdowns. Like, if he has 9, is it a bad year? Like, that's a little bit crazy to me. He does have a returning quarterback in Cade Klubnik, and normally when teams have a quarterback that return and a wide receiver that had that much production, they don't normally get worse unless something very bad happens to them offensively or injury happens or whatever. The way that he high points the football, I think the way that he runs routes, look, he's a danger, man. He is an outright danger. Go to a game that he played and tell me where he didn't have production. Maybe a little bit early, but after that, he was their number 1 go-to guy over and over again. And I would say this too. 89 targets, 75 catches. That is a lot of catches. I mean, so you're missing him once a game? So you throw to him once a game and he's being missed. So everything else. So he had 75 catches. So even if it was 15 games, it's not. Okay, they played 13. That means I know for a fact that he's getting 5 catches a game. The 6th one you throw to him is not being completed. That is atrociously effective.
And the biggest thing with me is that, again, I mentioned like down the stretch was when he exploded, because at the beginning of the year, he started off strong against Georgia and he had a couple of nice games, but dominated against Pitt for his best performance for 149 yards. He was really important in the South Carolina game, how close that battle was. if it wasn't for the game ending the way that it did with the mistakes that they had on that final drive, Clemson likely won that football game. And he didn't like dominate against Texas or SMU, but those games, right? Texas was as close as it was because Klubnik was able to find Williams in spurts. Against SMU too, there were plenty of important catches that Antonio Williams had in that game, even though he only went for 50 yards, that helped them win that football game. I just think that there was so many signs of how good this Clemson passing attack can be, and knowing that you've gotten good production out of a guy like that makes me feel really optimistic. They need to get back to the level of receiver play that we're used to seeing at Clemson at receiver. It feels like it's been so long since we've had a guy like a Sammy Watkins or a T. Higgins or, I'm trying to remember the last like big name Clemson receiver. Probably T. Higgins. Yeah, Andre Hopkins is way before Higgins, but
I'm just saying, I mean, every year they would have like that one guy, and then they have him for 3 years.
Right.
I'm with you. You know what it feels like with me with Clemson? I feel like I watched an old school program without today's portal have a mini rebuild. Think about it for just a minute. I mean, it's been a little bit of all right, you got to the playoffs, you won your conference, you got beat up by a couple of teams that were just more talented and more experienced than you. How do you respond from it? And kind of a mini rebuild for old Dabo. Maybe Dabo wasn't crazy.
I think he was crazy. I think he just realized he was going to die a slow, painful death if he didn't adjust.
Well, he only got 2 players. It's not like it's a massive adjust here.
Well, we talked about how they hired a GM. Like, that was kind of unexpected.
Right. Well, and he went and got one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. I would say this about that Texas game you brought up before we move on. TJ Moore went off. Right. And Williams was somebody that they guarded carefully. Remember, what were me and you talking about after that game? Man, Clemson receivers abused Texas's DBs. That was our talking point.
Right. We talked about how they kicked the shit out of them, and then we were suddenly
we went into that
really
Texas
worried.
game with Ohio State like, oh, bro, if Clemson's cooking them, then Ohio State's going to definitely cook them. And it did not happen. It didn't happen. Not like that, it didn't.
BetOnline remains your top spot for all of your live betting action and contests. NFL, college football, UFC, NHL are all in full swing. BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions with both desktop and mobile access at any time. Head to BetOnline today and use promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for 50% off your first deposit. That is a 50% welcome bonus. BetOnline, where the game starts.